pennies still exist because the zinc industry has a real stranglehold on the government. Curse you, Big Zinc!
Everybody, and welcome to Book Retorts. I'm Danielle.
I'm Sam.
And this is the podcast where one of us tells a strange piece of media to the other person who has no experience with it.
I didn't quite understand that, Danielle.
I was close. Anyway, Sam, today.
Oh, today. This very day.
We are exploring a book.
Oh, we've done a lot of those lately.
I know. We're on a roll, man. This is a classic 90s author who actually
is... It R.L. Stein?
It is not, but it's in the same vein. This is a book by Christopher Pike.
Okay, yes. Horror for children.
I would say teens. It's definitely teen themes.
I mean, at our age, Danielle, teens are children. Off my lawn!
And so Christopher Pike has written many, many novels, in fact, is still writing to this very day. But the book that we're doing is called The Eternal Enemy.
So, heart disease.
Yes, that's exactly it, Sam. The eternal enemy is heart disease.
Well, I solved it, Danielle. Let's pack it in.
Silence killer. All right.
I think heart disease or like cancer are probably going to be up there for what I would consider the eternal enemy of humanity. But what do I know? Or, I've got it. The eternal enemy is us.
Kind of. You know what? That's a better road to take for this book, Sam.
Oh, okay.
You got it. Got it in one.
That feels like it feels like a 1950s, like a classic sci-fi premise. Is that
the
enemy was humanity all along?
Yeah. This is actually like a sci-fi. I wouldn't even say it's a horror. It's a little sci-fi.
Okay.
It's got that vibe. I decided to take on your mantle, but with 90s teen books.
I'm honored that you have emulated me, and I'm glad you put your own spin on it.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So this book was written in 1993, which has very little to do with much in this book, but there are some throwback references which I think you'll really enjoy that are very 90s.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to send you the summary so we can start there.
Okay. I'm going to butcher these names.
It's okay. I have no idea how they're spoken. They're never referenced in the book, I think.
Okay, Danielle, I have only glanced at the first sentence of this summary, and I can tell this is going to be a very 90s book.
It definitely has a 90s premise, I would say.
See if you can figure out what keyword tipped me off, listeners, while I read this summary. Rela, or Rela?
I was going to say Rela, but it could very well be Rela.
Or Rela. Let's say Rela. Rela has just bought herself a new VCR. She sets the machine to tape a movie she plans to show at a party she is throwing. Oh, 90s. But instead of the movie, she gets the news. Tomorrow's news.
Ooh.
Soon, Rela is regularly recording next week's news, even what is to happen in the far future. That's a bad sentence.
It's terribly written.
It's fun at first until she sees herself on the news and learns that there is no future for her. But can she change destiny? Can Rela survive what is meant to be? Okay, questions already.
That was a terrible reading of that, Sam.
It's a terribly written summary, Danielle.
I didn't write it.
Look, let me read this sentence again. It's fun at first until she sees herself on the news, period. Capital A, and learns there is no future for her. That's a sentence fragment right there.
It is. I didn't write it. I told you the only summary I could find was that summary 18 times.
What about the back of the book, Danielle?
That might be the back of the book. That was on every website I could find.
All right, I can read it again, but I think...
No, I think we got the gist of it.
It's just not a very well-written summary. Anyway, the point is, if she sees herself on the news in the future, then how can she have no future? Like, by definition, she knows there's a future for her because she sees herself in the news in the future.
Maybe it'll be explained when we get there.
I'm just saying, I'm already calling shenanigans on this time-traveling news VCR nonsense.
No, that's fine, because it's very shenanigan-y.
Okay.
All right, let's begin this.
I haven't had a good magic VCR story since ever.
Know, that classic magic VCR story that was so popular in the 1990s.
I remember when I couldn't wait to record a movie on my VCR to share with some people later instead of just going to, I don't know, Blockbuster while it still existed.
Blockbuster is in this book.
Oh, boy.
It's great.
I feel sorry for any of our listeners who are, I don't know, less than 30 years old.
Everybody, Blockbuster was a movie store.
What's a movie store, Dan? I don't understand. Why are they necessary?
One left in the world. I think
it was Alaska.
Or Canada or something. I don't know.
The point is, we haven't explained anything about what it is, but I don't know, Google it. There's ironically a Netflix documentary called The Last Blockbuster.
I know.
That'll explain things.
This is right on cue. We're like ahead of our time right now.
How?
Because we're
talking about VCRs?
Because we're talking about Blockbuster, and Blockbuster's in the news, so this is good for us.
Oh, we're only a few weeks late, what you're talking about. Right on time for us.
Anyway, first person. This is a first person written narrative.
I'm guessing by Rela.
Yeah. Rela.
Rela.
So it opens with this. Well, I'm going to read the sentence because it's just, sometimes, like, I like a lot of Christopher Pike books. They're fun reads. I read quite a few when I was in my teen years.
Sure.
Sometimes he writes like a man writing a female. No offense to Christopher Pike.
No, I know what you mean. And I think we've established in this podcast that you can love the works of an author, but sometimes they put out a real stinker.
Yeah. And sometimes it's like an adult writing a teenager. He just has that vibe. Some of his books are fabulous. I'm not disparaging many of his classics. So this one...
Understood. But this one is a middle-aged man writing a teenage girl and sounding like it.
It's great. There's a couple of fabulous lines in here that I wrote down for our listening pleasure.
Oh boy.
But it opens, says, I was just a normal teenage girl. I loved beautiful clothes and loud music, long telephone conversations and sleepy summer evenings. Most of all, I loved cookies and boys. My favorite cookies were chocolate chip with milk.
I was waiting for them to mention malls and shopping.
It goes on from there, but that was my... And not that
boys
I don't
and
love...
cookies, they're equivalent.
I love boys and cookies and beautiful clothes and loud music. But...
Danielle, I'm going to be honest. If I was going to rank things as a teenager, like, I was way more interested in cookies. Cookies are way better. They're way more satisfying. They're less drama. Rela, get your priorities straight. Go for the cookies.
It comes up quite a lot, cookies. Like, I don't know what it was about this book and cookies, but she actually mentions them quite a few times.
I mean, a chocolate chip is kind of your baseline, not very fancy cookie, which is great. They're a nice workhorse cookie, Rela, but expand your horizons. There's so many great Snickerdoodles are great.
They are great. I even
White chocolate
like
macadamia nut?
oatmeal, which I know is not everybody's favorite, but I quite like oatmeal.
I like oatmeal, but I can't abide the raisins. I'm
like
sorry.
Raisins.
I know, but we'll have to agree to disagree on that front.
It hasn't destroyed our friendship yet.
There are many other disagreements we have on food that will destroy our friendship. Maybe we'll talk about them in a future short.
Perhaps.
But for now, let's talk about Rela and her cookie boy obsession.
Okay, so her favorite boy.
Sorry, quick question. Is her favorite boy made of cookies?
No.
Like a gingerbread boy?
Yes, surprise twist at the end. He's made out of gingerbread.
Oh my gosh. Christopher Pike, you've done it again.
No. Her favorite boy is a boy named Christopher, who's in her class.
Of course.
And as you know, her name was Rela. Rela.
So, thank you for confirming.
Yeah.
I like how I made you question her name pronunciation.
No, I'm not. I wasn't sure to begin with. I went with Rela, but it very well might be Rela.
This is why English needs like accents aigu or something on
exactly.
the...
So she talks about how she gets goosebumps every time she thinks about Chris and Rela together.
Just a different franchise, Christopher Pike. Stop promoting your competition.
It's going to get dark here soon. You got to pay attention, Sam.
Okay, sorry.
So she used to get goosebumps when she thought of Chris and Rela, but now she just feels sadness. Why does she feel sadness? I'm not going to tell you yet.
Is she depressed? It's going to be sad. Like, is this about like, hey, Rela, take care of yourself. I know that being a teenager is tough and that we all went through depressive phases, but you have a support system. Use it.
No, that's not what this is about at all.
Oh, well, listeners, take care of yourselves, please. Don't be like Rela.
Don't be like Rela. Don't be sad about this boy. So someone she once knew said that without sorrow, there'd be no compassion. And that's how she's going to start this story. Filled with compassion for the people of the world and humankind.
So, all right. I haven't read a lot of Christopher Pike, or any probably. And I never read that many Goosebumps either. I'll be honest. I sort of missed the whole teen horror
I know.
boat.
Shocking, really.
I mean, it's fine. But the thing I remember about R.L. Stine books was that they were very sort of personal. Like, it was a story about a kid who, like, has something happen to them. Mm-hmm. And this is already making it to be like, the world is in jeopardy kind of thing, which kind of changes the focus a bit.
Well, and some of his books are very much things happening to specific characters. He has a lot of, like, high school drama things with cheerleaders that are evil or whatever, you know, like that kind of stuff. Slumber parties that go awry.
Danielle, we already did evil cheerleaders.
I know, which is why
repetitive.
This is why I did not do one of the evil cheerleaders or slumber parties gone awry books.
Sign me up for slumber parties gone awry. What?
Well, maybe we'll get there.
Yeah, that sounds hilarious.
So she talks about how fragile humans are and how time is both what creates them, like creates them as a human being, gives them personality and life, but also destroys them in the end. And how she doesn't have much time left because her old friend has come back for her and it's now her time.
She sounds like a freshman philosophy major and I hate it. A little bit.
So that's where it starts. And then it doesn't exactly backtrack, but that's basically what happens. Like leading up to this, you know, dramatic interpretation is all this stuff that happened.
So does the classic 90s like, you're probably wondering how I got in the middle of this exploding fireball while jumping off a plane. Let me take you back 3 days earlier.
It just starts saying, so I really wanted a VCR. That's what it jumps back into.
Humanity is fragile, life is pointless, but I really wanted that VCR, man. Hot new ticket item from 1991.
1993, and yes, it was a hot ticket item. So she wants this VCR, she loved movies, and she felt like she was her and her dad were the only family in LA that didn't own a VCR. And so this is the quote. This is my favorite quote in the whole book. He goes, cookies, boys, movies, and popcorn. What a life.
I am so confused. I don't like, how are you combining those things? Because I have some questions and maybe want to take some notes.
So she only has $200. She has saved that up from her after-school job at the library. And so she knows she's not going to get like a high-quality VCR because this is the time when VCRs were freaking expensive.
Is that true? Because I thought, like, didn't VCRs come out in, like, the 70s?
Well, apparently in 1993, VCRs were more than $200, according to this book. I
am doubtful about that. I'm going to do some, all right, maybe I'll do some looking into this after we're done recording here, but I am extremely doubtful that you could get a perfectly cromulent VCR for less than $200 in 1993. That seems like it was easily doable.
I think you could get one that was cheaper than that, but, like, the newest models were well over $200.
Okay, sure, but like, Rela, get your expectations in line. Get a fine VCR. You don't need like a freaking Ferrari of VCRs.
We'll get there. Sam, focus.
I'm so sorry. I'm already so lost in this 90s nostalgia thing that I am
It has nothing to do with the rest of it.
So why? You've wasted my time. I've wasted everyone's time. I'm so sorry.
And so she heard from her friends that Circuit City is the best place to get a VCR.
Okay.
This book kills me. It's so funny.
I'm so sorry. I've discussed this before. I think I mentioned this in the Shark Shock episode about how when writers include like actual brand names in their stories, you know, ostensibly to make it more realistic, it just takes me out of it. I'm like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah, because you look back on it 30 years later and you're like, oh, Circuit City.
It just means like I'm trying to get lost in this clearly fictional world, and you're bringing up all these things that I see all around me, ostensibly, or saw all around me, and it's like, oh wait, no, this is clearly fictional because it just draws that distinction because it's like, here's what's real, and this is not real.
I agree. It threw me off when I read Circuit City, and I laughed out loud. So,
and if they said like Best Buy, which as of recording still exists, I still would have been thrown off.
Well, anyway, she gets there. She gets to Circuit City. There's lots of different VCRs, and she's talking to the store clerk that's trying to sell her on a more new model.
Uh-huh.
This store clerk's name is Ed, and...
So Rayla's like 13, 14, you didn't say?
No, she's 18.
She's 18?
She is 18.
She's 18, and she's like, cookies and boys.
Yes, she's... Sam... Told you this is a, like, adult male talking about a female teenager.
I was so... Danielle, I swear to God, I thought you must have been like 12 or 13 by everything that was going on. That was my thought. I'm like... Did I just miss what you said she was 18?
I did not say that. No, I never said her age.
Yeah, kind of like, this gotta be like, she sounds like a 13-year-old.
Nope, she's 18. She is,
That's
I assume,
not
a
even
senior
close.
in high school. Yeah. And anyway, so he's trying to upsell her on this $300 plus machine. And he's talking about how they're like slow motion if it has the four heads, and then you can watch.
Auto tracking.
Yeah, you can like watch things in slow motion. It's amazing. And he ends up talking her into this machine, and he will sell it for her for $280. I guess you could haggle at Circuit City.
Okay, sure. That's not my experience, but I'm not a cute 18-year-old girl.
He allows her to post-date a check for the $80 extra. She only has the $200 in her account.
That's a terrible idea, Rela.
I know, but he flirts heavily, and she tells him she's buying it for a party where her boyfriend's going to be there. It's actually her, hopeful boyfriend. They're not actually dating yet.
Uh-huh.
And he ends up getting her address off of her check that she post-dates.
The dude's a creeper.
Well, he's not, though. I mean, not to spoil it. He's a totally fine individual.
No. If you are flirting with girls at your work and getting their addresses from their checks, you're a creeper. I don't care what your intentions are. You a creeper.
A little bit. But regardless, it doesn't come much into play. So that night, she's learning how to program her VCR. She's going to put it in the living room, but, and I quote, "I took it out of the box in my bedroom, though, because I wanted to have privacy while I learned how to use it." I thought it was funny. You couldn't learn how to program it in your living room.
I don't. Boy, that sounds... Christopher Pike, dude.
So she sets her to record this old sci-fi movie on HBO that's playing at 3 a.m. as a test run. And the movie is It, the terror from beyond space. It. Those are all exclamation points.
Oh, so not the Stephen King It.
No, the terror from beyond space. It's a 1950s. It's real. I Googled it. It's a 1950s
okay,
Martian
I'm about to
film.
say, is that real or not?
I was curious. I thought it was because I felt like I'd seen the title before.
Well, I mean, if Circuit City's real, why not that movie?
Exactly. So she plans to play it during the party, as you know from the summary.
Yes, that very clearly written summary.
Yeah. So her dad comes home. Her dad is a local reverend in LA, and we learn that she was adopted 3 months ago. This book...
Wait, what?
This book.
So, 18-year-old girl was adopted... First off, if she's 18, right? She's legally an adult. Why would she be adopted?
I don't know if she was 17 when she was adopted. I don't know when her birthday was.
However, but even so, I'm going to adopt you just before you turn 18 and no longer, the adoption will be less... I get the idea of, a symbolic, if he had been in her life as a guiding figure and she wanted to be officially his daughter, I understand that. But are you going to tell him he's just I went out and adopted her from the orphanage 3 months ago.
Well, we'll get there. But amazingly, I don't know what adoptions were like in 1993.
Sure.
There was actually somebody in my life getting adopted, but I was a child, so I don't remember the whole process. But it took quite a long time.
Yeah, social services is involved. Isn't it a snap of your fingers decision?
Yeah, and this story seems to imply that they basically met 3 to 4 months ago, and she was adopted 3 months ago, and that is definitely not how adoptions work.
Holy crap, if there was some old bachelor adopting a 18-year-old girl in my neighborhood, I'd be like, uh-oh, there's something not right happening here.
We'll get into how they all met and stuff in a little bit, Sam.
I'm just saying, this is extremely not okay.
He's fine. So
yeah, everyone's fine.
None of this has anything to do with anything.
Stalker guy at Circuit City is fine, Danielle. But I'm saying, this should not be fine.
So... Meanwhile, she's at school the next day. She said her thing. Or I think it's the same day that she's at school. And she ends up writing this 2-page love note to Chris during her math class instead of paying attention to math. Apparently, she's this girl genius, so she's not paying any attention to math, but it's fine. She's going to ace the test. And
you go, Rela.
The gems in this letter, Sam, they're amazing. It says, "I'm on the short side, but my body is your most wonderful dream."
I hate that. I hate that. No, gosh, I hate that.
I gagged a little.
Boy, that is...
Also, no 18-year-old is writing that as a love note.
Also, no one is writing that as a love note.
And my nose is a button. My smile is a bar of white chocolate. Do you like chocolate, Chris? I like it in cookies.
I like how she had to specify white chocolate, which feels unnecessarily kind of
I think she was saying her teeth are super white. That's how I read it.
Okay, fair enough. Okay. Maybe I misheard you because I was just so shocked by the cookie part of that metaphor.
So after class, she finally decides she's going to ask him to the party. Apparently, she's not done that yet. And it turns out...
that's tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, it's a few days away, I guess.
Okay.
I think.
You gotta give people some time, really.
A week, maybe. But it turns out that her best friend Stacy's actually already told him because she was convinced that she was never going to ask him. And so they start talking about it. He confirms that he wants to go, but he wants to bring a friend with him. And she had recently found out that he's been hanging out with this girl named Debbie at lunch. And
Debbie, how dare you steal my man?
He's like, oh no. She's like, oh no, he's bringing Debbie. But she still lets him come to the party.
So she as the host does not confirm who his plus one is before the party?
No, she doesn't ask him anything. She just like mentally panics and then is like, yeah, you can bring your friend. And they end their conversation and they go their separate ways.
Rela,
I know. Her friend later is like, you didn't ask? Like,
Rela, I am so disappointed in all of your life choices thus far. Especially your writing skills. I mean, you may be a genius at math, but
oh, I know.
Please,
that's
polish
rough.
up
that letter is rough.
That poetry.
And it's like 2 pages in the book, Sam. It just goes on forever.
They put the entire thing in the book?
Yes.
Can you do me a favor, Danielle? Can you please tweet out those pages
Sure.
to our listeners? Because I really want that to be out in the universe.
They're pretty amazing. I will definitely do that.
Oh, thank you. I want to see those.
So the next morning, she has a kind of a bout of vague nightmares that night, and she's out getting food for the party. And she's invited, according to her, at least 4 dozen people, and she's getting sandwich fixings. Which,
4 dozen?
4 dozen people, which is, I always thought she meant like, oh, she's new to town. She's only lived there the 3 months.
Yeah.
I thought she meant like a couple friends.
Yeah,
and,
5 or 6 most.
Yeah. And she's showing a movie. I was like, you're going to show a movie to 40 people?
Yeah, like you're going to crowd onto her couch and like on her tiny TV. Because TVs in the 90s weren't like giant theater-sized screens like we have these days. They were tiny CRTs,
Yeah.
that were 25, 30, 40 inches.
And she's buying actual food, like chips and dip and some soda, hun. Like, why are you getting sandwich fixings for everybody?
I mean, a party sub would go a long way to feeding 40 people, I'm not going to lie. But also, Rela, seriously, dial it back a bit.
It's wild. And her dad's given his blessing, and he's going to stay at like an associate's that night, so he won't be home.
I mean, they're all adults, so I'm like, it's okay. But also, they don't seem to be acting like adults.
No, that's funny. He's not super prevalent in this story, but he definitely treats her like, you're an 18-year-old and I have no control over anything you do. And I'm like, you are her father and she lives in your house.
Well, I mean, he is her father in the sense that he adopted her as an adult, like when she was an adult.
Yeah, but he doesn't even, like later on, you'll see, he doesn't even say, so why are you doing that? Or where are you going?
No, my point is like, he's barely, like, that's not like, I wouldn't consider that to be particularly fatherly relationship to say like, oh, I adopted her as an adult and barely interacted with her. That doesn't really make you her father.
No, but they otherwise act like parent and child. It's just that he apparently just gives her free reign over everything she wants to do.
Let me ask you this. Will this book make like a million times more sense if she was like 14, 15? Like,
no.
Would the characters make more sense
I don't
in
think
their
it
actions?
matters her age at all, really.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around adopting a 17-year-old and then not really parenting them.
I don't understand the adoption thing, but it's not really relevant. I don't want to give too much away because her background is relevant to the story. But
okay.
Anyway,
sorry. I'm really getting off course here. But this book is so confusing, Danielle.
It's not my fault. And so, got the parties going. She also has organized games that she wants to play at this party, which again, 46
Twister?
plus person party. No,
Are they
it's
all
like
playing Twister, Pin the Tail of the Donkey?
No, they're playing like Trivial Pursuit and a game with
what a lame party!
A game where you play the theme songs for TV shows and everybody has to guess what show it's from.
Name the tune, yeah.
Anyway,
Danielle, I love board games, but if you invite me to a rager party of 40 people and you ask me to play Trivial Pursuit, I will leave.
I know the plans for this party are like 8-person party plans, and she's just, I don't understand them at all.
Maybe I just hate Trivial Pursuit, but even for 8 people, I would not play Trivial Pursuit. I'm sorry.
So the party's that night. It's going well. Everybody's showing up. She's pleased. Chris finally shows up, and he does have Debbie in tow.
Debbie.
I know. So she takes a break from the festivities. She's in the kitchen prepping some carrots and stuff for everybody. And Chris comes in to chat, and he's like,
She's
oh, we
cooking
never...
for these 40 people.
Yeah, I know. So Chris comes in to chat. He's like, oh, we never have a chance to talk at school. It's so nice to actually get to have a conversation with you. She says, it's hard for a girl to get near you when you're surrounded by people like Debbie. And it turns out that Debbie's his cousin.
Of course, because
so
she never
was a side
asked.
plot that went nowhere.
You know, Danielle, I am actually relieved that this is not going to be another freaking love triangle book.
It's not. It's just like, it goes on for like 15 pages. And it's just kidding. It's the cousin. You're fine.
So it was like unnecessary teasing of a love triangle.
Absolutely. It was funny. So he asks her a bit about her past and like since she had just moved there, but she's reluctant to speak about it. So he talks more about himself, like she asks him some questions and she finds out that he's applying to Caltech and he's double majoring in physics and computer science.
Okay.
And he's convinced computers will be the wave of the future in physics, and he gets super geeky about like crystals storing data and fuzzy logic and fundamental laws and machines that can think on their own.
He was doing really well up until the crystals and part there. Like Christopher Pike was actually making some really prescient predictions on computers in the future and physics, but then
well, maybe that was a thing in 1993, Sam. I don't know.
I mean, to be fair, he probably knows more about it than I do, and I guess you could argue that silicon is crystalline in a way, so whatever.
So he's pretty excited about the idea of like the future of machinery and robotics and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I like him. Why is the story about him?
Well, he's a very important part of the story.
All right, cool.
And she says the idea of all that really concerns her because we might become dependent on computers and cease to think for ourselves.
Boo! Don't be a Luddite.
And she quotes the Terminator movie, and he's like, "It's fine. They have an off switch. Like it'll be fine."
I may is my bias. I don't think that computers have solved all the problems in the world or like a universal good, and that we should just be like, hey, sure, rampant technology, not a problem. Also, I don't buy into the conspiracy-minded set that technology is destroying our humanity. So,
well, she apparently thinks it might, and he thinks he can just turn them off. So what's the big deal?
I'm more on Chris's side than hers. Sure,
but he clearly has not seen any sci-fi movie.
Is his name Chris?
Yeah, Christopher. Mm-hmm. Chris.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just realized that he has the same name as the author.
Oh, you're right. I didn't even think of that.
Is that intentional, I wonder?
I don't know. Maybe he just... how could you write your own name that many times and not realize that you did it?
Well, I mean, you read it that many times and didn't realize, so what do I know?
So anyway, he also mentions that he wants to minor in psychology because he finds the human mind super fascinating. And he says, "Did you know that I have a biofeedback machine in my bedroom?" And I like that he says it that way. Like she's like, "Oh yeah, we talk about it in school." Like why would she know that?
I think it's just hey, want to come to my bedroom and see my biofeedback machine, baby?
I even wrote that on my note. I was like, whoa, what a weird way to get someone into your bedroom.
Danielle, I gotta say, I really had very little success in that regard in high school, so maybe I should be taking notes.
Yeah, maybe it would have worked.
Maybe. Who am I to judge?
He says he uses the machine to go into a deep state of alpha, and he'd love to show it to her sometime. So,
oh boy.
That's a thing.
Oh, alpha brainwave stuff. Great. Here we are.
So while she's cutting up these carrots, she accidentally cuts herself and she's just bleeding profusely. And he's really concerned about it, overly concerned about the fact that she cut her finger. And she's not too concerned about it. She starts wrapping a towel around it and everything. And they're arguing over whether or not she needs stitches when the guy from Circuit City shows up. Ed.
Oh, the creeper.
The creeper from Circuit City shows up.
Gosh.
And she directs him towards Stacy, her friend. You two would totally hit it off. You go hit on her because I'm interested in this dude.
At least she's direct about it.
Yeah. So her finger's doing a bit better by this point, and his concern makes her think, and I quote, "I decided right then that he could not be present at the birth of our first child. He'd just faint. I had already decided I was going to marry him."
What?
I don't know.
So, because he was
freaking out about all the blood.
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to wrap my head around the implications of that sentence. I'm still parsing it. She is saying the person she wants to be the father of her children is not allowed to be present when they are born.
Because he'd just faint because he can't even handle a little blood off her finger.
Rela, you're a monster.
So at this point, she interrupts the party and she gathers everybody around to watch the movie that she recorded on her VCR.
Hey, everybody, all 40 of you, get your butts over here, crowd in.
It says in the book that she yelled loudly to interrupt all the talking.
Stop having fun. Come watch the movie I want you all to watch.
Rela, they're having a good time. Why would you stop the party?
Oh, now we're going to play Trivial Pursuit. Everyone sit down. Let me go over the rules and you're going to play them exactly as I tell you. She's the worst host.
I know, it's wild. So as she's trying to get it to play, it won't play. It's just the news that keeps playing over and over. And so she gets really like irrationally annoyed about it being wrong.
Oh, I would be totally annoyed at. I mean, I get that, Danielle. The one thing I definitely realized is being really ticked off at the piece of electronics you just set up, not doing what you told it to.
Yeah. So she gets like, she's like overreactionary,
I'd
mad
be
about
smashing
it.
the thing.
Yeah. And Chris offers to head over to Blockbuster with her to get a few movies. Woo!
Yay, Blockbuster. In the meantime, everyone just quietly leaves the party because like, no, I'm not here for this.
Just go back to talking. They were having a good time, Rela.
Yeah, but then they're like, they know it's temporary. They know they're just going to go talking, and then she's going to get back with some movie and interrupt them all over again.
I know. It's wild. So they go to Blockbuster, they're picking out a movie. They agree to go on an official date while they're driving around. I know. So that night after the party, she ends up having a dream about Chris mapping out her brain on a computer. And it's like, she figures out...
Please let this be a lawnmower, man.
She figures out like the secrets of the universe and the human soul. It's like a very big dream. And then this dream fades into her being in a chair. And there's a vial of green liquid, which she knew if she injected it would affect her memory somehow. And she plunges the needle into her arm, and then like everything she ever knew kind of dissolves out of her brain, and she suddenly wakes up from the nightmare.
Is everything in this book just like the most dramatic it could possibly be?
It's all very dramatic, and it's all very like, ooh.
I love it. I really do.
It reminded me a little bit of the Madeleine L'Engle, like how thought affects atoms and blah, blah. I don't know.
I kind of regret not reading Christopher Pike because I think I would have had a lot of fun with these books as a teenager.
Yeah, some of the sci-fi books that he wrote are pretty fabulous. And he got really into spirituality for a while. So a lot of his books have these very interesting spiritual elements.
Oh, man. I mean, I know we're poking fun here, but I think I would have a lot of fun. I would have read these books and enjoyed them a lot.
I have read them as an adult and as a teenager, so I'm on board. Christopher Pike, you go, Christopher Pike. So she wakes up, she goes down to get some water, she is trying to shake her dream, and she decides to take a look at the VCR and see what happened, like if she programmed it incorrectly or what. She's getting like a really weird feeling when she's looking at the tape, and she is kind of reticent to check it out, and she ends up finally just talking herself into it, like, suck it up, it's not a big deal.
It's just a tape, man, just watch the tape.
So she pops the tape in and watches the news program, trying to figure out what time or channel got taped instead. And she hears some world news, and then she hears the scores of a football game. And what strikes her as weird about the scores of the football game is that most football's played on Sunday, and it's not Sunday yet. It was Saturday for the party.
Okay.
And so she was trying to figure out.
Monday Night Football isn't a thing.
I guess in this time period, Sunday was the big football.
I get
Sunday Night Football was a thing. And so she's like, why would there be a national NFL team, scores on a Saturday or whatever day it was? And she checks the TV guide, she's trying to match the time, and she says that she realizes the news that's being recorded is only played on Mondays at 3 a.m. And so she checks the date on the VCR, and she realizes it's set for the Monday date. And somehow she thinks she taped the future.
Okay, so she sees that the VCR had the wrong time set on it, and the time was set for the future. And so the premise is, if you set your VCR to the future, it will record the future.
Basically, yes.
I love it. That's amazing.
It gets weirder. Wait for it.
No, that makes perfect sense, Danielle. I have no qualms with that at all. I'm on board.
That is the premise right now, but it gets even weirder.
Oh, okay.
So she is waiting for her date that Sunday for Chris, and she ends up watching the football game that was mentioned on the news, and she's watching it with her dad, and she bets on the score with him. Her dad, even though he's a reverend and a swell guy, is like super into betting, not in a creepy way where he loses all his money, but just like he was game. And so she's like,
cannons it.
She ends up winning. She bets the exact score, obviously, and she ends up winning $500 from her dad.
That's not a small sum.
Well, they started small, but he was like, let's do the math on this. What are your odds if you actually get the specific score? That kind of thing. So she won.
So she cheated. Got it.
Well, she did, but... She wasn't really going to take the money originally. They were just kind of going back and forth. And then he really was like, no, I'm giving it to you. You won fair and square.
Okay. Good for him, I guess. Giving your adopted daughter a bunch of cash.
Which is a lot. $500 in 93.
Yeah. It's a lot now. I mean.
It is. On her date that night, she ends up not telling Chris about the VCR or the dream that he was in. She just kind of like doesn't feel right about telling him.
Good call there, Rela. Let me tell you about my magic VCR on our first date.
Well, she was going to tell him originally, and then like when she went to do it, she's like, oh, it doesn't feel right. I'm not going to.
Smart.
So she learns that they both play the piano, and she tells him that her biological grandfather is the one who taught her. And so he finds out that she's adopted. But she doesn't want to say really anything more about her past, so he kind of drops the situation. When they get home, they kiss up the door. And
Wait. They kiss up the door?
They kiss. I said they kiss up the door, but that's
Oh,
not really
are they
a
making out
sentence.
the door?
They kiss
Hey
at
there,
the door.
sexy door. Let me just look at that doorknob. It's so shiny.
I was going to say like up at the house or something, but
Yeah,
they kiss
up
at the door. Yeah.
I like that. It's like the cut of them like, what a lovely night. Well, let's kiss this door goodnight.
That's what they do. So that night she sets her VCR to record again, and she does have another nightmare, and that nightmare is about a surgery where they remove her spinal cord, and they remove it while she's watching the map of her brain on the computer. And as she wakes up, and she ends up like has a normal day, and she ends up going to Chris's house late that night, and he introduces the biofeedback machine to her.
Okay, so she's having creepy dreams. Now, if these dreams are actually related to the VCR, I will be less impressed.
We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Uh-huh.
So this biofeedback machine, there are lights on this machine, and each light corresponds with a different brainwave. And there's theta, alpha, beta, and delta brainwaves. And he tells her that alpha and theta are the best. They can make you feel euphoric.
Okay, of all the brainwaves, you don't really need the theta and you said theta or whatever. I don't know. You don't need gamma brainwaves.
Just alpha and theta.
Yeah, alpha and theta. Beta sucks.
Yeah, he says it's if you're melting into and becoming part of a vast ocean. Okay,
again,
Chris.
I really wish. Okay, listeners, if any of you know anything about neuroscience, because clearly we don't, I'm not sure this book does either. Could you please explain to us if any of this makes sense?
It might.
I could be complete. You know what? Maybe Christopher Pike did his research and these are all solid neuroscience stuff. Let me know, because I would love to hear how I can make myself euphoric with a biofeedback machine.
Yeah, I will say that reading this, I bought it. I was like, yeah, sure. It sounded valid enough. Like he did enough research to at least make it sound like he knew what he was talking about, regardless of whether or not it's true.
Yeah, that's really all you need as an author, frankly.
Yeah. So everything he said in here, I was like, sure, why not?
You know what? Good for him.
Yeah.
But I want to know facts, Danielle.
So they have this big conversation in this bedroom about brainwaves naturally altering your consciousness versus your consciousness altering your brainwaves.
That's just sort of the whole thing, like, where's the soul? Are you your brain or is your brain like a member?
This book is big on like what makes up a human, souls, all that. And he talks about how he thinks it's a mechanical process that can be controlled, and all electrochemical activity inside your brain, it's so he's
there,
like, it's
humans
not
are just
mystical,
electrochemical machines.
basically. And she's more open to the idea of like the vastness of life or
Some
unknown things.
Ephemeral,
something more ephemeral
quality that makes humans.
Yeah, exactly.
Or life, whatever.
And he doesn't exactly disagree, but in that conversation, he's just like, I don't really think that's necessarily true. So he wants her to try the machine. And originally she's nervous but game. But as he starts to hook her up to the electrodes or whatever, she kind of starts to freak out. And he's like, it's fine. Like, you don't have to do it. And she ends up going home.
Well, Chris, you tried.
I know.
You tried to hook up your potential girlfriend to your electrobiofeedback machine for whatever purpose. I'm not here to judge, but didn't work out. Better luck next time.
It did not. But did get her to his room, so that was a win.
That's a start, I guess.
So this is kind of where the book ends up going into a couple of future shenanigans things. Like she ends up seeing the score for a baseball game, goes to Las Vegas, wins some money. She sees down in San Francisco, she ends up seeing some window washers fall to their death, and she travels there and tries to save them. And she kind of realized this is not really that relevant. She saves one out of the like 3 or 4 of them or something. Okay. And so...
Not your best work. Maybe a phone call next time.
Yeah. So anyway, it's not really relevant to the red spots. I'm skipping over that, but she learns that it's not as good as she thought it was. The idea of knowing the future, right?
Oh gosh, I mean, this is the thing. I would hate knowing the future.
Yeah, but she was kind of like interested and sort of excited about it to begin with, and now she's like, okay, this is way harder than I thought it was going to be, and I really don't actually want to know this stuff.
All right,
like,
well then just
I don't know,
turn off the machine and stop.
Yeah, you would think so, but that is not how any of this works.
Of course.
So that evening, her dad is out and she hears a knocking at the door and she calls out, who's there? And nobody answers and it kind of just continues. And her dad finally pulls up into the driveway and the person seems to disappear. And she tells her dad about it. And she's like, you didn't see anybody out there? And he's like, nope, there's nobody there. And that night she has another dream about recovering in a hospital room. And she remembers that in that previous dream, remember she had the green vial with the liquid?
Yeah, the one that affected her memory.
Yeah. So she realizes she didn't just have a green vial of liquid in that dream. She also had a purple vial. And the purple was actually meant to preserve her memory and the green was meant to kill her.
Okay. A couple of things here.
Yes.
Cool dream. Having been in a hospital ever, I realize that they do not color code the liquids they inject into you.
Yes, I don't know if it's actually a hospital, Sam, at this point, where
I'm
you
just
don't know
saying,
as the reader.
In
it's
general,
just a hospital setting.
In general, solutions, like medical solutions, are just clear. They look like water.
Absolutely.
99% of the time, they're clear solutions. Like, they don't make medicines that look like gack from Nickelodeon slime or whatever.
But writing-wise, saying the clear solution and the clear solution really has no merit.
I mean, I can't disagree with that. Obviously that's less awesome. And in, video games, movies, TV, books, they have to color code them to make it more exciting. But also, Christopher, buddy, you're doing so well with your computer science and your brain waves.
It's a dream, so who knows? Like maybe
that's fair.
If this really happened in real life, maybe the colors weren't actually purple.
Okay, all right, maybe it's the dream color. I'll go with it, Danielle. I'm just saying. I want to see a dream where it's like, I don't know which one's which. They're both clear.
This one could be saline. Who knows?
Right.
So this dream ends with her realizing she can push through the wall of the hospital and she can travel through the atoms and through time, and she sees everything from the beginning of the creation of humans, and
it's full of stars.
Yeah, and she mentally stops short of the end of humanity because she doesn't want to see the end. She feels like she already has heard of the ending before and doesn't want to witness it.
Okay, wow, this got real trippy.
This book gets very weird very fast.
I did not expect my teen horror / sci-fi to become such a head trip so out of the blue.
I love the ending of this. This is my favorite thing. I was living for the ending of this. So she wakes up, checks the VCR, and to her surprise, as the summary suggests, she sees a picture of herself in the corner of the news, as the person's talking.
She still recorded stuff on the VCR, even though she's like, this is bad, I don't like this.
I think that at some point she stops recording or doesn't remember recording, but it's still happening.
All right. Rela, I don't want to tell you how to do your job, but unplug it.
Get rid of the VCR. Just take it out of your house. So the newscaster says that her mutilated remains were found at the house.
Ew.
And her father states a stranger had been around the house, and her boyfriend Chris was talking about how she'd been followed by somebody, and she had said the guy looked familiar.
Is it Best Buy guy, or not Best Buy, Circuit City guy?
Ed? No.
His name's Ed, okay.
Maybe, but no.
Well, who else has stalked her so far?
Well, you'll find out.
Okay.
She's not surprised by this. She's not even that panicky. She's the quote is, "What else could be the result of tampering with the news except to become a part of the news?"
That doesn't follow.
I was I don't think that tracks, Rela.
No. What else could happen from having a magic VCR that lets you predict the future than to become mutilated corpse in your own home? That makes sense.
I was I don't think that's true.
Your logic, Rela, flawless.
She ends up going back to sleep, which surprises her, and she has a dream. And
Oh,
this
here we
dream
go.
is actually based in reality. So it's about her arriving in Pasadena, and she meets a man who takes her. She's in a hospital gown. She's wandering. She doesn't seem to really know what's going on. And she meets a man who ends up taking her to a nearby shelter, who's run by the Reverend, who is her future father. And he tells her that she looks like she escaped from a hospital, and she's like, oh no, it wasn't a hospital. It was a morgue.
Yeah.
And that's basically the backstory, is that she had amnesia. She arrived in Pasadena. She was taken to this shelter, taken in by the Reverend there, and she ended up being adopted by
That's
him.
not okay. That doesn't make it any better. That's way worse.
They don't really get into anything more than that.
No,
I said,
seriously.
the guy is not really a major part of the story at all.
I don't want to belabor this, but it is negligent to let an amnesiac adult just be adopted by some random dude and taken away.
And I agree. I also don't know how far her amnesia runs because they don't talk about it a whole lot, but she seems to not remember stuff. But like she remembered that her bio grandfather taught her how to play piano, but she doesn't seem to remember where she came from.
He has no relationship to her other than being someone that worked at the shelter she was at.
Sure, I don't disagree. If you think too much about it, it's concerning.
Time-traveling VCR, I'm on board. Adopting an adult from a shelter you barely know, the adult you barely know, you know the shelter, I presume. Clarified. But that, no, that's a bridge too far.
Yeah, apparently they just felt connected. I don't know, Sam. The book does not explore that at all.
I get it. I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying I can accept many weird shenanigans and suspend disbelief in this book for many things, but that whole adoption thing just does not sit well with me in terms of like, it feels, if I may use a phrase I don't particularly like, squicky.
Okay, it's established. Okay, we understand. It's a very questionable adoption story.
If you just heard that, you'd be like, oh, he's definitely into her.
Ew. That's not how the book plays at all. I never thought that once while reading this book, everybody.
If you just, I'm not saying it's in the book, but if you just read like an article about how like, oh, middle-aged reverend adopts 18-year-old amnesiac from shelter, like, okay, there's something else going on there.
Okay, maybe, yes. Regardless, that's how she ended up there.
Bad optics is all I'm saying.
So she knows that she's going to die in the middle of the night due to the news story. So she's not super concerned about the rest of the day, but she does know she's supposed to die that evening. So
but maybe you should be concerned now. Get ready.
Right. So she thinks about like leaving town or whatever. She for some reason doesn't do any of these things, but she does skip school and she ends up in the evening going to her library job because she feels like it's a safe space. There's a lot of people there.
When you're being stalked, just go about your normal stuff. Go to your normal routine.
I don't know, Sam. And she's as she's browsing the stacks, like putting books away or whatever she's doing, she's approached by a man who asks her for some help on the Civil War, and she's holding a Civil War book. So he didn't look familiar, which is she remembers from the newscaster that she had said to Chris. And so she's unsure if this is the guy that's the stalker or not, but she's obviously suspicious of everybody at this point.
Sure.
So she directs him to the history book and he settles in to read, and she's nervous about him. She keeps like eyeing him, and she's trying to reach Chris to stay with her after work. But she finds out that he won't be home till 9. And she also tries her friend, can't get a hold of her. She doesn't want to involve her dad in it because she doesn't want her dad to get hurt at the house if he's home. But apparently she doesn't care if Chris or Stacy or any of her other friends get murdered. And she ends up calling Ed, the Circuit City guy.
Oh, Ed. Good old Ed.
He plays such an interesting role in this, considering he has nothing to do with anything. So she tells him she's being stalked, and he's like, well, I can't get off my shift till 10, so why don't you go to like an all-night diner or something after, and I'll meet you there. Well, she doesn't want to involve the police because she doesn't think they're going to believe her. She doesn't have any proof.
All they have to do is keep her safe for one night. Like, okay, you're being stalked, let's keep you in a holding cell for a night or whatever.
Do you really think the stalker would just like not kill her that night? Would he kill her the next night?
Well, the news story didn't say that she got killed it said what night she got killed on, right?
Right, but wouldn't she just go home and then the next video would be like, she got killed that night? You could just be in an endless series.
She doesn't figure that out herself. Like maybe it was like an opportunistic thing, right?
Right. Maybe. She doesn't try anything that I would have tried, Sam. Yeah, what she does is go to work and then decide she's going to go to an all-night diner after work and wait for Ed. So the more that she watches this guy and ends up interacting with the patron at the library, she's decided that he definitely is the assassin.
Okay, assassin's an interesting word for it.
No, the person who's going to kill her is what I meant, the murderer.
I know, I just like the fact, like, he was sent from the future to stop the girl with the magic VCR from destroying the world.
Yes, that's what happens.
He's like, what's his face in Terminator?
Assassin was just the first word I thought of. But yeah, the murderer. So she finally gets a hold of Chris. And she wants to show him the tape, but she forgot it at home. She meant to grab it when she left, but she was kind of shaken. So they agree to meet at the house, and she's convinced that this guy, the murderer, will not hurt Chris because she just has a feeling that he's important somehow and that Chris won't be murdered.
He's not worth assassinating. He's not part of the contract.
Yeah, he's not part of the contract. And they do meet at the house. She drives straight there, and she decides to watch the tape again before showing it to Chris. Don't ask me why. She just decides to.
Couldn't they meet at his house or something?
She would have to go home first to get the tape, so she didn't want to go alone because she was afraid she'd get murdered while she was there.
Or just maybe don't get the tape. Just spend the night with Chris and then go back the next day to watch the tape.
Yes, all of those would be potential solutions, Sam.
I'm sorry. Again.
Not like the VCR is going to suddenly stop working.
It just seems like she's creating more problems for herself.
I do not disagree.
Okay.
So when she watches it this time, it shows Chris as the murdered one and Rayla's missing.
So the tape magically changed even though it hadn't had a chance to record again.
Yes. Ooh, magic tape.
Okay, cool. Love it.
So she grabs the VCR and she's like, we need to go. Let's go to your house or something.
She takes the VCR with her. That's the important thing.
She's like, I've got to show you what VCR is doing. Let's go. And suddenly Chris just drops to the ground, passes out, and the power goes out in the house.
Oh, no.
Yes. So there's a knock at the door and she's like, who is it?
Or not.
I don't know if she says that, but the person outside says, it's me, Rela. You have to let me in.
Who's
and
me?
She knows it's the guy. She knows. She has a sense. And so she makes a deal with this guy that he won't hurt Chris if she lets him in. Otherwise, he plans to murder Chris.
Why? What's his deal?
Oh, we'll get there. You're never going to see it coming.
I'm not.
So she lets him in. He admits that he gassed the interior of the house and that
didn't affect Rayla somehow.
Right. And she's like, well, why is Chris so special? And he says basically that's the wrong question.
No, that's the right question.
I hate these conversations. So she realizes she's like, oh, Chris isn't special. You and I are special for some reason because you're not affected by it either. And then one of those stupid conversations, she's like, who are you? And he goes, you know who I am. Where are you from?
I didn't ask if I knew who you were.
Who am I? Wrong question. And I'm like, just tell her. I hate those conversations.
No, I agree.
So she's basically, I don't understand what you're talking about. And he reaches out for her injured hand, the one that she cut while she was dicing the carrots. And he takes off the bandage. And then, this is gross, everybody. So, cover your ears if you don't like gross things. No, he begins to peel away her skin.
Ugh.
As if it was made of wax. But weirdly, she doesn't feel any pain and there's no blood. And when she looks down, she realizes that the inside of the wound is just copper wires and silver metal.
She's a robot?
Maybe.
So, wait, hold up. This is a Daryl situation. You know the movie Daryl about the robot kid who escapes from a military organization?
No.
Boy, you missed out on that 80s movie. 90s movie? I forget. Anyway, Daryl stands for Data Analyzing Robot Youth Life Form. Anyway.
That's interesting.
Great movie. Highly recommend it.
That's interesting because Rela stands for Robotic Experimentation Logistical Algorithm.
They're always an acronym.
So apparently she used to have a different name. She realizes she's not crying, which she feels like she should be.
Okay, but no,
everything.
hold up. I'm sorry. You're blasting past this robot thing real fast.
So I figured it was fair game.
No, we paused because we were talking about how they give every robot in every book an acronym name, because. But my thing is, she's a robot. How was she bleeding before?
I guess it was something in their system. I don't know, Sam. They never explained that.
Okay. So
but apparently they talk about how she's supposed to be crying and she just didn't turn the switch on for the tears. She just realizes she has control over that. So maybe she also has control over a blood pump through her system.
Okay, yeah. People can put a robot that's hey, let's get a bunch of wet stuff near all your circuitry. That makes sense.
Well, we'll get into a little bit of the creation of this, so maybe it'll make more sense then. Maybe.
I am so... You're right. I didn't see that coming, Danielle. But also, I don't really think you could have seen that coming because it was nonsense.
And I was reading this, I was like, huh, okay.
I mean, usually when you're reading something like this and you get to the big twist, oh, I can remember all these little clues in the previous chapters, but no, that doesn't exist here.
Yeah, other than a hospital scenario where her spine got replaced or taken out or something.
Yeah, but that's just weird dream stuff.
Obviously, it played into something, Sam. You don't have weird dream stuff in books that doesn't go anywhere.
I know, but the point is, that means she's a robot.
No, it does not usually mean that someone's a robot.
Do androids dream of electric sheep, Danielle?
Well, apparently.
Well, apparently they dream of hospital stays.
So Anyway, he's like, I have to destroy you, but before I do that, do you remember the name Sarah?
Is that another acronym? I swear.
No, it's not.
Okay.
Not to ruin that, but no. Spoiler,
I've already forgotten what Rela stands for.
So the surprise of hearing that name somehow triggers her amnesia to disappear. She suddenly remembers her past.
Oh, that's how that works.
Right.
Well, she's a robot. What do I know?
So she looks at the man that's standing in front of her, and she realizes that this is her grandfather.
Okay.
The one that taught her the piano.
I got that, but like, do robots have grandfathers?
We'll get there. We're gonna get there. Okay, so there is a flashback / flash forward story. It is the year 2036 in LA.
They sent her back in time Terminator style, I swear.
And apparently, in this very futuristic time,
2034.
2036.
Oh, I'm sorry. So was it going to be 16, 15 years, everybody? Get ready.
15 years from now. In this very futuristic time, the world is absolutely terrible. No surprise.
Well, they're not far off, actually. They got it off by about 15 years.
There's nuclear war. There's ground you can't use to plant anything. There's an explosion on the lunar colony that kills everyone.
We're going to have a lunar colony? Boy, we better get on that.
Loved it. And there's no more space travel planned for the next century.
Oh, that part's true.
So her grandfather would often visit. He was this famous Nobel Prize winner. He was brilliant. And he brought her toys and taught her how to play piano and often told her she reminded him of this girl he once knew. And then he disappeared for a while. And the good news amongst all this strife is that there is a worldwide humanitarian agency that springs up. And they call it something similar to the UN, but smaller and more effective, more influential.
Ooh, burn on the UN.
And the agency is called New Life, and they've spread pretty rapidly, and they've had really widespread success. And so they've basically been rebuilding economies in the world, and they've helped with pollution and brought nations back to strong financial footing and all of that. There's a lot of skepticism surrounding it because not a whole lot's known about the people who run it.
Sure.
But it is run by a group of people and not like a singular
So they're
person.
definitely evil. Got it.
But it's so successful and it has such a diverse group of people running it and not, like I said, not run by a single person that governments feel relatively safe using their resources.
And that's how they get you.
And at 18, her grandfather finally returns back to the house. And he looks years and years older, like just that he aged exponentially. And he stays with them for a while. And as he's recovering, he starts to explain a bit of what he went through in the intervening years. And basically, he got involved with genetic techno-engineering, GTE. And these are these are experiments with life on a cellular level. So basically,
cellular biology, got it.
Basically, but with like microchips. So it's adding.
So, okay.
It's like adding robotic touches to cellular life. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
And so they start with monkeys, and it shows these increased capabilities with monkeys. They're able to, play checkers successfully and do more than they usually could as monkeys.
Congratulations. Your monkey's playing checkers. I'll fix the ozone layer.
Right. So they get permission. He and his team, and basically it's these two guys who run this team, he got permission to work on brain-dead patients. And when they started adding these microchips into these brain-dead patients, the patients started to revive.
So they basically made robot zombies.
Yeah, similar.
Okay, got it. Great. So far, what could go wrong?
And so eventually, because they can't get into human testing, his coworker tries the technology on himself and ends up eventually killing himself.
Yeah, well, that tracks.
Yeah. But then her grandfather, who believes he's gone through more than his coworker has in life and is a stronger will, personality, decides he's going to take it on himself and do the same thing.
So this medical procedure failed because he just didn't want it hard enough.
No, because he left a suicide note about it being like, everything is
suicide.
nothing.
I thought you meant he killed himself through the experiment.
No, he killed himself, literally killed himself.
Okay, that changes. Okay, that changes the tenor.
Sorry.
That changes. That makes my comment completely different.
I apologize. I was not clear.
I thought he's experimenting on himself and he killed himself because the experiment went wrong.
No, he killed himself because he couldn't handle what he learned from the experiment.
Okay, got it. All right, that's different. Okay, understood.
So the grandfather ends up doing this on himself, and he begins to see, basically he becomes like a lab in himself. He can see inside of things. He can see what makes stuff up, atoms, like the microscopic minutia of the world. He gets like an extrasensory perception, basically. And he realizes that everything is made up of nothingness, of just space.
Well, okay, yes, atoms are mostly space. Way to go, guy. You caught up to the 1960s.
Well, he's like, beyond the smallest of the small, there must be nothing. So he discovered basically that the universe never forgets anything either, like everything.
Is this like water memory and homeopathy? Because I don't mind that.
I don't know enough about water memory to confirm or deny, but basically it's just saying that space just remembers all things because it's created from all things. I don't know,
what
Sam.
Does it mean to remember something?
Sci-fi
like, there's
nonsense.
Some vague BS terms here.
That's just what he says. That doesn't forget anything.
I bet he says it. I'm saying it's some vague BS.
But because of that, he was able to basically travel through time, and he could see the past. He didn't like affect the past. He could just see it, and he could see all the potential futures as well.
Okay.
So the likeliest future for humanity, the one that was like 90% certain, was very, very bleak.
Yeah, that tracks. Okay, yeah. So far, the book has a pretty good grasp on the future.
So he ends up like stealing a design that he sees in the future of basically like a thinking machine, like a robotic machine that can think for itself.
Okay, so an AI.
Right.
The Steven Spielberg film.
He has this idea that if he creates this, it can help him make a better future for humanity, basically. And he builds this robot, and this robot helps him build a better robot, and so on, wash, rinse, repeat, et cetera, more and more
it's
advanced.
A whole like AI making AI and iterating.
Right. And they're 100% devoted to humankind, but they're what New Life are created out of, like the New Life group.
So basically he created a new race into existence that was supposedly devoted to humanity. Didn't have the 3 laws of robotics. That's your first mistake.
But they are. They're like 100% devoted to humanity. They will like not kill humans.
We'll see about that.
So, and they have like a consensus. They're supposed to like more or less agree on everything to move forward. And originally, obviously, this is working out really well. And then the only thing they disagree on is that what exactly is best for humanity, like what that means.
Oh, so they only disagree on the big important stuff. Got
right.
it.
So he didn't want to look into the future because he was afraid it would like kind of like jinx it, or if he knew the future, it wouldn't come true, like whatever.
Right. If you know what's going to happen, you might like mess it up. Your ignorance is part of what makes the future happen.
Exactly. So eventually he ends up looking into the future, and he realizes that in the future, all humans have decided to become robots at some point. So
they basically say, hey, let's all become these technological combinations where there is no line now between human and technology. We are a single race of biotechnological beings.
Absolutely. Like it just starts with small stuff and then it just becomes more and more.
I get it. What's bad about that?
Nothing except that at some point it becomes more like robotic than human.
And again, I don't see the problem.
Well, apparently they have an issue with it, Sam.
Oh, he has an issue with it, you're saying?
He has an issue with it because he doesn't want, he feels like he's destroyed humanity by creating these cyborgs.
There's just that whole question about what is humanity again? What makes a human a human? Is it a soul or is it like biomechanical?
Absolutely. And so his and also Sarah's argument is like it's a soul. So
her name is Sarah, actually, or his actual granddaughter's name is Sarah, who he based Rela off of.
Sort of. We're so close, Sam.
Okay.
It's not quite going where you think it's going, but it's so close. So she's just like aghast at this. Like, you basically destroyed humanity. Good job, Grandpa.
Oh, they're going to destroy themselves, Danielle. I mean, humanity wasn't doing a bang-up job on their own.
No. And she goes like, why did you even tell me this if you're saying, and he's like looked into the future and there is no future that does not have these things in it. Like, it's just, that's what it will be. And she's like, why did you tell me this if there's no changing the future?
I think he's very judgy about what constitutes valuable life and non-valuable life.
Well, she's arguing that these future creatures don't have souls. So it's like the argument of what makes a human.
I'm just saying,
the idea of a soul, and apparently these creatures do not. They're very,
I just say that's very judgy. Like, hey, Commander Data has a soul, in my opinion, even though he is an android. So
sure, but these are not necessarily like nice future cyborgs. They're just We'll get there, sort of.
Oh, are they evil? Are they hurting people? I thought they were all devoted to humanity.
They're devoted to humanity, but they think they're the best version of humanity.
I mean, every humanity thinks they're the best version of humanity. That's just like, duh. That's the most human thing about them so far, Danielle.
Right. And so... She's upset with him. He says he only told her this because she reminded him of a girl he knew in the past that had died and who also believed in the power of life and souls. And he just wanted someone to know that he hadn't disagreed with her. They had talked about it at length and he hadn't disagreed with her. He just cared about people so much that he had wanted to help them. And then it turned out that he had basically theoretically destroyed them. And so they part ways. She's like, I don't really want to be a part of your life anymore. So they split. And then she has this thought. What would happen if a cyborg went back in time and killed my grandfather when he was a young man?
Oh, man. It's that old chestnut.
So close.
I gotta say, that is the oldest time travel paradox in existence. What happens if you go back in time and kill your grandfather?
But with robots, Sam, with robots.
All right, well, what happens, Danielle?
So part of the cyborg process, they use these human bodies, or have in the past. They use these human bodies, they wipe the mind clean, and then they make them into cyborgs. And so the dreams that she's been having with the two drugs, one kills her, one keeps her memory intact. So the goal is to... It
was her creation, basically.
Yeah, her goal is to take the medicine that allows her to keep her memory intact, but kill herself and she tells her grandfather, she's thought about what he said and she wants to be a cyborg. She doesn't want to die. She wants to live on forever. And he will do it because it's her dying wish. And then she plans to be sneaky and go into the future and kill him.
Wait, go into the future and kill him?
Go into the past, and kill him.
How does she get into the past?
Well, I told you, okay, so remember earlier she had the dream about walking through the wall and she saw all the time, blah, blah, blah. And he talks about how when he was under the influence of the microchip, he could see the future and the past.
So basically, because they're computerized, they can go do time travel.
Because they can see everything in the universe, they have no constrictions on time. It explains it slightly better in the book, but it is very confusing. So
the cyborgization process, for lack of a better word, so expands their consciousness that they are no longer bounded by space-time.
Exactly.
BS.
Well, that's it, Sam. I can't change the plot for you.
Okay, no, fine. Let's go. Let's do it. She basically, her plan is she becomes a cyborg, and not because she actually wants to live forever, but because she wants to use the magic cyborg powers to go back in time and kill her grandfather. Yes,
and she doesn't want to kill her grandfather, but she feels like it's the only way to prevent humanity from dying.
Great. All right. Play it forward. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. So... Okay.
There's also with the VCR. I just want to point that out.
We'll get back to the VCR briefly.
Oh, great.
Okay, so what happens is she does all this, but something goes slightly awry, and she ends up having amnesia when she arrives in the past.
She goes back in time, has amnesia, gets adopted by Reverend What's-His-Face, and loves boys and cookies.
Yeah, loves boys and cookies. She becomes a normal teenage girl.
Who bleeds somehow.
Who bleeds somehow. And at this point, you might be wondering how her grandfather got there, because...
Yep. But isn't he also unrestricted by time and space because he put the things in his brain too?
But he's not a cyborg. He just has a microchip in him.
Yeah, well, it seemed to work.
Yeah, I don't know if he took it out of him at the end or maybe that's why he was recovering with them. I don't know. Anyway, so he ends up, after she died, he decides that he wants to be a cyborg. And he basically kept advancing himself until he was in the year 3116.
Sure.
3116 and went
May
back,
12th.
Right. And went back to kill her because he feels that she's the threat to humanity.
So he's like, haha, you thought you would kill me and prevent the cyborg future, but I am for cyborg future, so I'm going to go back in time and kill you when you go back in time to try to kill me.
Yes.
This is the dumbest onion of murder time travel I've ever heard in my life.
Right. And he doesn't feel like it's killing a human because he's not allowed to kill humans. That's still a thing because she's already dead. She died and became a cyborg.
Yeah, she's a robot that somehow has wires in her hand at the same time as blood, even though she's made from a human body.
Well, and she's arguing that I have a soul. I have memories. I have...
Oh, so she has a soul even though she's one of the cyborgs. The other cyborgs don't have souls. Rela, you are full of it.
I don't know why she thinks she has a soul versus it's not very clear on why she thinks she does.
Extremely inhuman. We have souls, or I'm special, but the rest of you are not.
exactly what happens.
Not Rela, I'm with your grandfather on this one.
So her grandfather apparently is as all evil people are, is evil, quote unquote, bad guys in books are, is monologuing.
Yep.
So he asks questions. He's like, I have your grandfather's natural curiosity. I have many qualities that he had. And I just want to chat with you before I kill you. So like, if you're trying to save humans, how does killing the man who takes away human suffering actually help?
Oh, that old argument. They get into this turns into a freshman philosophy argument, doesn't it?
Kind of, yeah, because she basically is like, well, it's better to be alive and suffer than not exist at all. And I don't consider your existence the actual human existence.
'Tis better to have loved and lost. Blah, blah, blah.
Yes. And he's like, well, humans are they exist. They're just in a better form than they were 1,000 years ago. And she, like I said, she's convinced she kept her soul intact and that not all suffering is bad. So she's the one
magic cyborg who kept her soul intact.
Yeah, somehow.
So why can't the rest of them keep their souls intact too, Rela?
I don't know. But maybe they didn't through well, now they probably don't 1,000 years in the future. Whatever. 1,300 years in the future.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if she can magically keep her soul intact through the cyborgization process, then so can the other ones.
Yes, so she should create a world where that happens.
Or just tell her grandfather, hey, don't wipe their memories first. Keep their souls intact if you buy into that premise.
So she says, without suffering, there'd be no compassion, which is the line from the beginning of it. And she never got to tell her grandfather. She never got the opportunity to tell him that she forgave him for everything that he ended up doing. And she understood where he was coming from, like why he was trying to make humanity a better place and how it turned out the way it did.
Okay.
And then apparently that's the end of the questions. It's time to die. But before he can kill her, there's a knock at the door.
Man, could you travel back like 5 minutes earlier?
I know. So it's Ed and Stacy. And they're concerned about her because if you recall, she was supposed to be at like Denny's or something, hanging out until Ed showed up.
Man, really, you kind of just bumbled your way into some magic saving situation.
Exactly. So there's this really like dicey game. They're let in, and obviously he wants to murder them, and she's like, please don't kill my friends.
I thought he couldn't murder humans anyway.
Well, he is willing to kill people to save humanity, essentially.
See, this is the problem you get with all these robotic laws about, like, you know, the greater good, you know, the whole do no harm to humans, but what about humanity in general? A few people have to suffer for the greater good. This is why these things never work.
I know. And he introduces himself to the two of them as Hal, which I think is pretty funny.
Of course his name is Hal.
His name's like Henry or something, but he introduces himself as Hal, a friend of her father's who's staying in town. And while they're conversing, Rela, Sarah, she takes the opportunity to go over to where the VCR is, and she puts her finger in the spot where the cable goes.
The magic VCR is going to solve this problem.
Yeah, and apparently this is how she was actually the person who was like downloading the information to the VCR every night. She did, like,
so she was sending the information to the tapes back through time.
Yes, so that her like human quote unquote self could have it in a form that they'd understand.
But her human quote unquote self is still her robot quote unquote self.
Yes, but she didn't know that yet. So this was like a way for her human self to consume the future without like knowing she was a robot.
Okay.
And so she ends up recording something like in fast time while the guy's not paying attention. You know, he's talking to the other two. So she's doing something nefarious in the back with recording. And they finally leave. She like talks them into going like, no, everything's fine. Get out of here. And Chris finally wakes up, and she also convinces him to go home. And she realizes somewhere in there that
you sound very confused.
No,
Danielle.
I realized that I didn't mention this earlier, but she realizes that Chris is her grandfather.
Ew. What?
So all of the talk about him, like the psych and the computer sciences, like the person that she was supposed to discover when she came back to the past was Christopher. That's why she was so close to him.
She had the hots for, this is a very like Back to the Future reverse situation.
It's very gross.
Yeah, no. Everyone in this book is gross.
So she realizes that Chris is her grandfather, and so she has to kill him in order to complete the prophecy, essentially, so that the future is secure.
You must be sacrificed to fulfill the robot prophecy, Chris.
So in this last-ditch attempt to finish her mission of killing Chris, as he's leaving, she's like, hey, lean in for a kiss, basically. And she's like, this didn't feel incestuous because I'm a completely different, being than I was as Sarah.
No, it feels incestuous. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I was like, no, Sarah, Rela, it's still weird.
Also, Sarah/Rela, if you claim to still have the soul of Sarah/Rela, you can't then say, well, I have her soul, but this isn't a completely different person. No, you can't have it both ways.
Yeah, super weird. And as she's doing that, the robot guy, the future grandfather, kind of realizes that she's planning to basically kill him, as she squeeze him to death, break his neck. She has super robotic powers now.
Of course.
There's nothing he can do about that. They're already kind of leaning in for that. And she realizes at the last second that she cannot kill him. She just can't kill her grandfather. She just can't. And so he ends up leaving and going home.
Just can't do it, huh?
Nope, can't do it.
Well, so much time travel wasted.
I know. So her cyborg grandfather and Rela are left alone, and Rela asks him, she's like, okay, I realize there's no way out of this. I can't, no matter what I do, you're gonna murder me. And so where should I stand? What do you want me to do? And that's the end of that chapter.
Is this halfway through the book?
No, it's almost done.
Okay.
So the next scene is an epilogue.
Oh, okay.
Book is basically over. So the epilogue, Rela Sarah has been dead a month. She died. The end.
That's the epilogue?
No. The epilogue is that she's been dead a month. It's been really rough. Her father's obviously had a hard time with it. Chris has had a hard time with it.
Oh, yeah, you knew her for all of 4 months.
And her father finally decides he's going to take the VCR over to Chris. And he hasn't used it. He never needed a VCR before, and obviously it was Rela's.
Did she record a message for Chris about how don't make robot humans in the future? It won't end well.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Basically, and it starts by her going, I was just a normal teenage girl. I love beautiful clothes and loud music.
Oh my God, that's not what a normal teenage girls say.
So he realizes it's her story. He hears the whole thing and he's like, oh, yeah, bad news bears. And, she was right that humans deserve more and need to keep their souls intact or whatever. And he's like, I'll never become that thing. Never. And that's the end of the story.
Oh, man, this whole story is predicated on the notion that you have to accept the idea that human and technology combining immediately eliminates the human soul, except for this one person. And if you don't buy into that, this whole story is just a bunch of nonsense.
Well, I bought into it. I was there for it. You go, Rela, Sarah. You and your soul.
I kind of feel like she's the antagonist in this book because she is the conceited, human who thinks they're the Ubermensch, who's like, all of the other robots are soulless and evil, but I'm the one robot with the soul, so I get to decide what's best for humanity by myself.
Yeah, it actually kind of reminds me of I Am Legend, the book, not the movie, which is very different. Spoiler alert for anybody who has not read that story, because the main character dies in the end of that and is taken over by the vampires, quote unquote, that are actually future human evolution. Yeah. And so that's kind of, it reminds me of that.
He was their legend of their evil monster, their boogeyman.
Right. And it's actually kind of similar, and I think in that way that she is the future better as those cyborg human creatures? Who knows, Why is it up to her to decide?
But that was sort of what I'm getting at. It's very conceited to be and again, also very human, but very conceited to be I am the one who is special. I'm the only one who's managed to maintain a soul. Everyone else is soulless and wrong, and I'm going to decide for everyone else.
Yep. Well, she does, and saves, quote unquote, saves humanity.
To the 90% future that's going to suck. In fact, her grandfather saw when this all happened, right?
But apparently suffering begets compassion, and compassion is the be-all and all.
Yeah, that's written by someone who's never actually suffered. I mean, I haven't suffered a whole lot in my life, compared to many people in this world. And I don't think that means I lack compassion. And maybe that's just my conceit talking, but I don't think I am a dispassionate person just because they haven't suffered greatly. And B, I think if you asked anybody who had suffered greatly, would you rather have a little less compassion or a little less suffering? They would choose less suffering.
It's probably accurate.
So, no. Rela, you're wrong. You'll always be wrong. You and your VCR could go back to the 90s where you belong.
Bet you didn't see a future VCR turning into robotics and time shenanigans.
I think I had too much, I think I had Christopher Pike and R.L. Stein linked too hard in my head, and that the story would be like a goofy horror story, much like R.L. Stein is always kind of fun and goofy, and not like some weird pseudo-intellectual future soul robot stuff. That all came out of nowhere.
His stuff can get pretty dark
no, that's great.
And odd.
I appreciate that. I mean, I appreciate that. He's like, how weird can I make this?
Yeah, no, I really think sometimes he sat down with that in mind.
I applaud that.
The weirdest thing
I
I could write in this book.
No, that's great. No, 10 out of 10 would read. I would root for the grandfather Christopher every time, but would read. Not that I think that humans need to upload their consciousness into computers and shed their bodies, or there isn't an ineffable quality to humanity, but I don't think this book makes a good argument for that notion.
And maybe the book does it better than I explained it.
That's a fair point. Maybe I don't want to judge the book harshly on your retelling. I would hope that no one would judge anything that I've told based on my retelling either.
Yeah, but it was quite the story. And there are just pages of nonsense where you're like, this sounds legit. I'm skipping.
I still understand, why were there 2 pages of a terrible love poem?
Oh, I don't know. They're amazing, though. They're really good 2 pages.
I really want you to share that. And I want to hear from our listeners, whose side are you on in the robot revolution?
Are you on Rela's or the grandfather's from
or
the
Christopher,
future?
Yeah. Also, how do you feel about that whole adoption thing? Because I'm still 3 months, 4 months adopted adult daughter. I'm still this. I am still unreasonably uncomfortable with that. And maybe that's just me.
What bothered me more about that adoption was just how fast it was. That really bugged me.
The whole thing is just doesn't feel. Why was it even necessary to have her adopted? Couldn't she just be an adult living on her own?
She could have been, but apparently amnesia can't be alone.
Or whatever. Living in a shelter or a halfway house or a foster family.
I mean, maybe he was the foster family that
just adopted her. Though.
Well, maybe it was a foster, that she went into foster care with him, and then he adopted her, apparently, in a week.
Anyway, if you want to write us and argue your side in the robot revolution of, what's this book called again?
Eternal Enemy.
Enemies? Eternal Enemy. What? There you go. Eternal Enemy. Eternal Enemy.
The Eternal Enemy by Christopher
Eternal
Pike.
Enemy. Christopher Pike. If you want to argue your side of the war in this book, you can write to us at bookretorts.com.
Or tweet at us, Facebook, Instagram us at bookretorts.
Oh boy. Well, I'm going to have some weird dreams tonight based on those dreams in the book. So until next time, bye.
Take care, everybody. Going to tell you about the bruise on my arm really quick though, because I just hit it and then
you have a new bruise. Look how shocked I am.
It's a really good story.
Did you hit your head on the bathroom shelf again?
No, but just have to do with the bathroom.
Not shocker. Most dangerous place in your house, Danielle.
Okay. I was actually at work, so I'm expanding. There was a bug in the toilet, and it was a flying bug. I didn't want to pee on it, and I also did not want it to fly up while I was
Why just flush the toilet?
Because I didn't want to kill it, Sam. Okay, I know this is a stupid story. And so I was trying to get it out, just get it to fly up, and it just kept flying back into the toilet. And it finally flew underneath the seat of the toilet. So then I had to lift up the toilet seat. And as I was doing it, the bug flew kind of at me, and I let go of the toilet seat, and it banged onto my arm.
Incredible. Just incredible, Danielle.
It hurt pretty well. It was several days ago, and now it's all sore.
I don't know how you get yourself into these sitcom situations.
It's impressive. And it did stay in the bathroom the rest of the day, but it didn't go into the toilet, so.
Well, I guess small victories.